welcome to Comm Majors. I'm Brian Costello.
I'm Jim DeSanto.
I'm Katie DeSanto.
And today we're looking at the Quentin Tarantino classic Pulp Fiction. But first, as always, we ask the most pressing question of every episode. What are we drinking this episode?
Well,
what does everybody have on St. Patrick's Day?
Tonight, I'm actually drinking a beer. Omegang Rare Voss, which is one of my favorite beers. And here's my Omegang goblet.
Oh, I like that
Yeah,
goblet.
we got that
Good
when
too.
we were up there.
Yeah, that was a great.
Good
Omegang.
trip.
Great
For
stuff.
some people who aren't aware of the brewery, they make the Game of Thrones
Yes,
They
they
do.
beer, who people
And
may have heard of
It's a
before.
great place to go.
And I don't think this is one of their more popular beers, but it's very good. It's just like a standard Belgian ale. It's not crazy strong, but it's real nice.
Have we ever met an Omegang beer that we didn't like?
They have some interesting ones. There's one of the Game of Thrones ones that I do not like.
Oh.
But it's like I don't remember what it was.
They had some weird
Good to
stuff.
know.
Remember, I brought down a bunch of the different types one time, right?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think I brought like 3 or 4 of the different ones down. There was a wheat one that I thought was not great.
Well, it's worth going there. They do a good little tour and tasting. Katie's drinking a cider tonight. It felt like, I don't know, a little strange to drink wine on St. Paddy's Day. So Doc's Draft. Sounds more Irish, I think. Little pear cider.
Doc
Delicious.
Holiday.
Yes. Well, I am drinking Guinness because
Oh,
it
good
is.
work, Brian.
Somebody's got to drink the black beer.
Because you shouldn't be drinking a Belgian beer
That's right.
on a podcast.
I will have
that's
you know
recorded on
that
St. Patrick's Day.
our giant was sold out of Guinness
Guinness.
today.
We tried to get it for Jer.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised.
Yep.
I'm not surprised at all. All right. So we're doing Quentin Tarantino's classic Pulp Fiction, but first it's time to fact check a couple of things we need to do here from last week's episode. Now I have a note just added here. Do we need to change the name Comm Majors because we now have a hardworking English major on the podcast?
I say no. And here is why. This is your podcast. I fully expect you to do all of the work involved with having a podcast, which there is some work involved, and I will just be your special guest
Okay.
because I already have 3 jobs.
Special guest all the time. You have 3 jobs.
I do have 3 jobs.
How many jobs you
don't
got this
think-
week, Mon?
I have
Yes.
3. I have 3 jobs all of the time, and I can't I can't have another one.
I don't think rebranding's a good idea right now.
No.
After that Notebook episode,
No,
we got a lot
Katie's
of
not
traffic.
upset
Yeah.
about the name of the podcast, and so
All right, we can move on then.
Yep,
That's it.
we're
Done.
good.
Okay. Katie, fact check last week. Katie brought up the idea of people pleasuring themselves into baseball gloves, of
Yeah.
which Jim and I found to be ridiculous, and I'll still
Horrific.
stand by that regardless. and horrific. But
Okay.
Katie has found some evidence of people doing this.
So as a woman in the world, this is something I have heard before. Certainly have never
Where?
experienced
Who
myself.
is women
Like-
in the at lunch?
I don't know. Not like people
is
talking
that
like,
the kind
oh,
of stuff?
I've done it, but like,
Is that the
that's
type
a
of stuff
thing
that's
that
going on
guys
at
do.
those
Time out.
baby
Time out.
showers you were
Legend.
talking about?
This segment is called Fact Check.
So here's the fact
Where's the
check.
fact?
So Katie went to the internet and
Well, hold on. All right, so moving on.
This
and
is
there
too,
is proof.
This is too
That's
And
easy.
there's
all
a
I'm
thing
gonna
called
say.
Wikipedia.
And I will say that apparently there is a reference in the 1997 film Good Will Hunting.
But that also is a film where that someone could have just wrote that thinking it was funny.
Let's talk about how many times folks have done stuff because they've seen it in the movies.
So you think
I'm
people were
sure it's a
inspired
thing
to masturbate into a baseball glove because they saw Good Will Hunting?
I am going to submit that I doubt that Good Will Hunting was the beginning of that story, but that is it documented in
Also,
film.
let's go back just moments ago where I declared
And we said
this
it was
section
not funny.
this section of the show is called
Fact check.
Fact Check.
So how
We
am
have-
I supposed to? So when I asked
Again.
men, do you masturbate into baseball gloves? Of course they said no.
Well,
this
that-
isn't something that people are going to readily
Were you
admit
asking
to.
people? Did you actually
Yeah,
ask that
I
this
was
week?
asking my coworkers, and nobody would cop to it.
Oh,
But on
amazing.
the internet, you'll find lots of folks talking about it. So Katie says, I'm right.
Okay. That is interesting. Here is a fact
Hearing
in Fact Checked. I actually have a number. 89% of our listeners said they would rather relive college than high school. A question that Katie
Thank
asked
goodness.
last week. We put up a poll, and it was a landslide.
That's a strong win.
Yeah, 89%. Fact. Just quickly from last week's episode on Can't Hardly Wait, I don't know how we forgot to mention that there was a Scott Baio reference in Can't Hardly Wait. He was a pivotal moment in the film. Charles in Charge. Shout out there.
There's a lot of random and shout outs in that movie that don't feel like cliche, that feel real.
Well, yeah,
like
because Scott Baio is not a cliche,
right? And that, well, you know what I mean. Like,
not in this sense,
ironic.
Right? Like, and the obsession with Barry Manilow and Mandy, like it's just so weird that it had to be real at some point for somebody.
So Jenna Elfman was obsessed with Scott Baio. Went to the mall, and why I was so bummed is Aileen had done that for Luke Perry.
Oh yeah.
And Luke Perry had died, but Aileen was rushed up to the mall because back in the day when there was no internet, she had heard that Luke Perry was at the mall, and she was so distraught to get there, and Luke Perry had left already, so she did not get to meet Luke Perry. But Scott Baio reference, always amazing. And then just a quick AFI update: I am now 11 films completed in less than a month. I watched Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid.
Awesome.
Do you think you'll complete the list by the end of 2019?
I don't know.
That's a
Probably,
lot.
Are you setting a goal to finish the list?
No, I'm not. I think because then it turns into a chore.
Good point.
And there's actually a bunch of stuff as I've been scrolling through that on Netflix right now I want to watch. Like I want to rewatch Michael Mann's Heat. Yeah. Is up right now, and
and who knows if this baseball thing will catch on? He might have a lot of time wrapped up into that.
What?
If he gets caught up in this baseball glove situation.
Yeah, I'm going to research this baseball glove.
His mom's watching. That's weird. Don't. Sorry, Patty.
And that is fact check. All right, Jim.
Oh, one other thing I forgot to say.
Yes.
What I'm drinking. I'm also very tired, so I'm having some House Cup coffee in my
there you go.
in my Baymax head mug. And I don't know if you can see this, but Baymax has. This was from. Peg and Jared bought me this in Disney, and you can see Baymax as his battery. As I drink the coffee, I go from angry to more happy.
I love it.
Yeah,
that's awesome. How do you run down a film that its narrative is non-linear and involves characters dying and being resurrected, but not really resurrected? No. Because it's a narrative choice. Explain the film to us, Jim.
Yeah. So Pulp Fiction is basically a movie that kind of takes place in three main parts. But the movie is cut non-linear, like Brian said. So you get random sequences where a character who has died earlier in the film is back because the portion we're watching has taken place before that, obviously. But the three main storylines are the diner sequence. Well, maybe there's four. So there's the diner sequence where the movie starts and ends. There's the story of Vincent Vega and Marcellus Wallace's wife, who is not important enough to be named here, which is interesting. Yeah, Mia. And then there's the Gold Watch, which has to do with Bruce Willis's character. And what's the final one? Oh, the Bonnie situation, which is the one that Quentin Tarantino takes part in. He's Jimmy, Bonnie is his wife, and the situation surrounding a dead body in their garage.
Marvin.
Poor Marvin. And this movie basically is comes right out of the gate and tells you right up front it's a pulp movie, meaning it's basically I don't even know how to. What do they even say about pulp?
Bloody, messy.
Yeah.
English. You're the English major, Katie.
Well,
what is a definition of pulp?
You gotta look it up because I thought Pulp Fiction was more about the style of storytelling. I mean, it has to do with content, but it's also kind of like the way it's told.
It comes from the type of novels that were produced on a specific kind of paper.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I forgot that.
But it did become synonymous with I would say like noir and
Right.
Yeah.
and exploitative sort of literature, where
All right.
you know, yeah, overly violent and things like that. But so yeah, and if you haven't seen this movie, stop listening right now and go watch the movie.
Well,
I'm not
don't
gonna
stop. Just watch this.
Yeah.
Or
Watch it
just
later.
leave
We'll be-
yourself.
we'll be
leave
finished
your
early
leave
today.
your viewing up, and
Yeah.
or you could just share this and then go watch.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then
yeah,
that's
yeah.
okay.
Pulp
Yes.
Fiction. Oh, that's fun.
So if you no, but seriously, if you haven't seen this movie, you should definitely see it. It is easily the best movie I think we've watched on Comm Majors so far. The only
Well,
movie
close.
I can say that is close for me personally is
Something about Mary.
No.
Son of a bitch.
Notebook.
No, is
Jurassic Park.
no.
No.
Oh,
Well, is The Big Lebowski as a
Wow.
film? I find those two to be the most interesting that we've done so far.
well,
all
this
right.
is
There's
like
just opinion.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think this is a game-changing film. It's
Oh,
like one of those
absolutely.
ones. Like next week, we're going to be doing 2001: Space Odyssey. Tarantino is Kubrick-esque in terms of like he did something that defines like cinema.
Yeah, he invented a new genre.
Yeah, and what I was saying to Katie is this was sort of like the just a few years earlier in the music industry, you had the alternative movement with Nirvana and the Seattle Sound. This was that for movies.
Oh, yeah.
Easily. You know, this was this 94.
94.
Yeah, and it changed everything. If you can remember how many movies came out after this that sort of tried to copy,
Oh, very poorly.
yeah, and try to copy the like Tarantino's aesthetic, his style, the things that he thinks are cool. I also said to Katie that he writes sort of like if Aaron Sorkin writes this like quippy, like heightened intellectualism
Elitist.
dialogue, Quentin does the same thing but for cool, not for intelligence. And
Well, he just crafts like dialogue sequences. Like the whole thing, obviously, like Royale, which he's the whole McDonald's thing,
Yep.
and he's going off McDonald's, and then, but he'll be able to punctuate it with Samuel L. Jackson saying, "Well, what about Burger King? I don't know. I didn't go to Burger King."
yeah,
And that's like it. It's just like that's the throwaway line.
Even the first sequence, which is the couple talking in the diner, which I don't know if you how much you researched this one, Brian, but I read somewhere that a lot of this stuff was stuff that was sort of taken and thrown away from True Romance.
Yeah, some of it. He wrote this. He actually started writing this when a long time before, and then stopped writing it, and then started writing because he had written True Romance. He did uncredited script rights for what was the Denzel Washington summary movie with Gene Hackman. He rewrote all that dialogue, which is a great movie, and then he finally kind of got this.
But
Which, not shockingly, was a slightly difficult script to sell at first.
right. Well, and that couple that you meet right off the gate, Tim Roth and I forget the actress's name. Was she the
Amanda Plummer?
Amanda Plummer. They remind me of the leads in True Romance.
Romance,
Like it
yeah.
could have been a scene in True Romance.
They could have had them.
Yeah, and you know what's funny is that that first scene is just them talking for I don't know how many minutes, and it's amazing and intense, and it's building. It starts with like this, just kind of like haphazard chatting, and then it quickly turns into we're robbing this diner over the course of it feels like 5 minutes that they're chatting. And it doesn't really cut away. It just cuts between these two and the waitress. And it's totally engaging, and it's awesome. I loved it. Right off the bat, I think I paused it right there, and I was like, this is amazing. Like right away.
Well, everything about it. I mean, they just have such interesting dialogue you wouldn't see. For example, the foot massage thing, where they go back and forth about foot massages, and like some people might say, no person would care that much about foot massages, and think they're that vital. But if you remember, Matt Fulmer felt that way. He one time made a statement at a Res Life event that 95% of back rubs led to sexual activity.
Dear Lord. I thought what you were going to say was that conversation made for an unbelievable dialogue, but to me that builds their relationship. You know, like that they have those kinds of conversations.
Oh yeah.
It just creates that idea for the viewer of,
and they do it in a hallway before they're going to kill somebody.
Right.
Which is fantastic.
Right.
And I love on that sequence, he did some really cool stuff in terms of visually, like that sequence, they shoot it down the hallway.
Mm-hmm.
So your focus is still on the door and they're kind of away and then they come back to the camera. You know, he did some interesting things like that, especially the close-ups on all the dialogue. In particular, when they do the Samuel L. Jackson close-ups. Do you know he almost lost that role to the guy who was the bartender?
Really?
Yeah. It was filming something and flew in red for Tarantino and didn't do a great job with it. And then the guy, I can't remember, it's the guy who was the bartender, the other person who worked there, read it and Samuel L. Jackson loved him. And then I think it was like Harvey Weinstein or one of the Weinsteins called Samuel L. Jackson and be like, you're going to have to come back and read this. They're going to give your part away. And he was pissed and he was filming somewhere and he had to fly back and then nobody met him at the airport. And then when he showed up to read, the guy who greeted him and say, hey, Mr. Fishburne, I love your work.
Oh my God.
Fishburne, and went in and just started free. He's like, I don't give a shit. He's like, he went and got a cheeseburger from like In-N-Out Burger and was drinking a Coke and just walk in and read the line. And they said like, Tarantino said he thought Samuel L. Jackson was going to kill him. And he's like, yeah. He's like, you're perfect. See ya. And he does it. He's awesome in this movie.
So
it might be his best movie, which is pretty hard because he's really good.
Yeah, and I was wondering, he didn't do a lot really before this that really put him on the main stage. I don't think.
No, he blockbuster wise, no. He was about to be in Die Hard with a Vengeance. Mm-hmm. That's the third one, I think, with Bruce Willis.
Yes.
They were about to be in that together. And I think that might have been the biggest one he made, like box office wise. And so this was big. And then after this, he could do whatever he wanted, basically.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about the movie.
Go ahead.
Okay, great. So why do you think, so we were talking about the purpose of the timeline mixing up, right? So how does that change the way that you look at the story, right? Coming to the diner as the last scene, which is actually chronologically a middle point in the story. Why does Tarantino have you end on that scene, and how does it change the way you view the story's message, characters? Discuss.
I do think that there's a lot of noir and Pulp Fiction of that genre that does things like that, where they kind of jump around and play with different narrative types. It certainly gave it the style that this was very different. You know, no film I can remember, I mean, at least in the modern film view, edited anyway like that. So I think it added to that aesthetic that he was going for. And I do think that in the case of John Travolta's character, I think he became more and more unlikable the more you saw him. So I think if you had played out that restaurant scene at the beginning, his relationship with Mia and the concern for him that something was going to happen to him if he died wouldn't have been there. If you go look at the sequences of him in the Bonnie part, and then in the restaurant part when he's going at Samuel L, or the way he treats Harvey Keitel in the Bonnie sequence, John Travolta's character is a flat out dick. And that's not the case when you see him in the first part. You get the quirky Royale with cheese discussion. I think Samuel L. Jackson's painted more as the really evil one. He's the one that does the whole dialogue and then kills the catcher, Doc Midnight from Field of Dreams.
Yep.
But then the more you start to see it, his character in those other sequences is very unlikable. The way he
that's
tossed the scene, and so I don't know if that was done, but I think at the part in the beginning, you're kind of like, oh man, John Travolta. And it's almost like when he gets killed, which is crazy in terms of that narrative. It's like the middle of the film.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh man, he got killed. But then you see, every time you see him after that, you're like, this guy is more and more of a dick every time I see him. So who really cares he's killed?
Yeah. And in the time, so he gets killed in the middle of the movie, but in the timeline, it's really the end, right? I mean, it's the last thing that happens, I think, is no, because he gets killed and then Butch escape. But yeah, right. There's the whole.
But in terms of the Samuel L. Vega storyline, you don't see them again.
Right, and so what I think is interesting, and me and Katie focused more on the stuff that we chatted about, was the change in Samuel L. Jackson's character and how that diner sequence is pivotal in that, meaning. He and Vincent get shot at point blank range in that apartment or whatever it was where they go to pick up Marvin and get the case back. And he has like a religious moment. Like, I just witnessed a miracle. I'm not dead. What does that mean? And he's totally, questioning his life.
It's a transformation.
Yeah. And so to go right into that, at the point where they leave Mr. Wolf's, it's interesting. I think it's really setting that moment up in the diner to beginning and the end to be like the kind of linchpin of the movie, that everything sort of hangs on that moment where he decides he's quitting.
Yeah.
And is that why he's not with Vincent when Vincent dies?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
There's the idea of redemption. One thing here is never has a man taken a dump and come out to more people with guns. Every time he is. Maybe that's why Jack Bauer never used the bathroom in 24.
Right.
He was inspired by the fact that he would turn into Vincent Vega. Every time he's going to the bathroom to read his book, he comes out and someone has pulled a gun.
Yeah.
Someone has a gun. Bruce Willis, by the way, really pissed off that he didn't get to be Vincent Vega.
Really?
Yeah, he wanted to be Vincent Vega in a big way. In fact, Harvey Weinstein, grade A alleged
scum of the earth
scumbag. And I know he hasn't been found guilty yet. Alleged. Was like, there's no way John Travolta's doing this. Like, when he read this script, they basically gave Tarantino whatever they wanted. Yeah. And he's like, you can have everything, no John Travolta. John Travolta was coming off the Look Who's Talking series. He had just done the third one when the animals had started talking.
And
they were like, this dude is not. We are not going to let him be in this.
What's funny about that is, who was the baby's voice?
Am I supposed to know that answer?
Bruce Willis.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
You should know it's a How Did This Get Made episode with Conan O'Brien.
Yes. We did listen
guest.
to that one.
Yeah.
Travolta was. This is funny because this was 94, so we were in high school.
Yeah.
And I just remember the rest of high school and even early college, John Travolta was like in everything. It was like, he has got to be in. And now he did follow it up with Get Shorty, which is
that's a great
really
movie.
Freaking good movie.
Yeah.
And then he made Lucky Numbers at some point, which we have referenced.
And what's the other one that's supposed to be like one of the worst movies ever made? The Dianetics movie. Ron Hubbard.
Battlefield Earth with Barry Pepper.
Yeah.
Michael was good. Yeah. Was that before or after this?
That was not good.
It was good. It was good.
But Michael's one of those movies he was in because of this movie.
Yes.
Like, get John Travolta, everything. You had to have John.
Face Off.
That was another great movie.
Face Off.
Broken Arrow, is that him too?
Broken Arrow, yep. It was Christian Slater and Howie Long.
Howie Long.
Some really good stuff there. Yep. Uma Thurman.
Awesome.
Really good in this movie.
What I said that, go ahead.
Really good. I don't think she's someone I usually think of as wanting to see in films.
But she's so good.
She was good really good in this movie. Yes.
Specifically.
Well, when she's in Tarantino movies, she's amazing.
I mean, her and Kill Bill.
Yeah, amazing.
Next
And
level.
I said, as soon as I saw her, it's sort of like, it reminded me how Tarantino places such an emphasis on interesting looking women in his movies. Like he makes her like, to me at that point, I'd never seen someone really looking like her. She almost looked like Malcolm McDowell from Clockwork Orange at certain points.
A little bit.
Yeah.
That's actually true. That's very true.
Yeah.
She really did have that. I thought, you know what I really loved about this, and this just, I don't know if I would have picked up on this, but I had been listening to the Light the Fuse podcast, the Mission Impossible podcast, and they had Brad Bird on this week. And he was talking about, in that film, he didn't want to show Tom Cruise right away in it. So they kind of alluded to it in different ways, and then they finally showed him, and it was kind of a tie into classic Hollywood with films like The Third Man and High Noon. And Tarantino did that so well in this. You don't see Ving Rhames, the way they introduce his character, the way they introduce Uma Thurman in terms of alluding to her for so long, and then you finally see her. That, I just think
was
that's
Amanda.
great.
It was Amanda from Can't Hardly Wait.
Amanda from Can't Hardly. It's just that classic Hollywood way, and he did such a good job of, you build up in your mind who these characters are going to be before you even see them. And she was an interesting choice because she's not, I think, unless you have to go back into your mind the first time you saw it, maybe you didn't know Uma Thurman or whatever, but that probably isn't who you're thinking of, that type of character.
No, especially
the
when
way
you
they talk, you would have probably thought like a blonde bombshell,
Hollywood
that
starlet.
for all three of the women, right?
Yeah.
So when you think about who Bruce Willis is going to have as his partner, you certainly do not picture his girlfriend. And then the same thing with the relationship in the diner, right? Like what kind of a woman is going to rob, right? Like when she turns on a dime and goes from
nuts.
Honey Bunny to drop everything. Right?
She might have some mental issues.
Yeah, but it's
I'm
awesome,
just throwing
right?
that out.
Like
Allegedly.
I love that.
But I thought he was great in that, and just again the dialogue. When you think about the dialogue, and that leads into one of the questions somebody sent you, Katie, about the film.
Are you ready? Fan question?
Yeah. You want to talk about what Jimmy sent over?
Yep. Do you have it there so I can read it word for word? Okay. So listener Jimmy Costanzo, a film
screenwriter himself,
movie aficionado.
He wrote Pulp Fiction, so this is a great question.
Yes.
If Pulp Fiction came out today in 2019, how would it be received? Would Tarantino be run out of town? Would it land the same impact?
Interesting. And I know that I think Ed's still in chat. Keenan might be out there too. I'd love to hear what you guys think. For me, even watching this again, I think there is a lot of art where as soon as you see it, hear it, feel it, you know that there is something special about it. And I get that from this movie. And even if parts of it would now be considered super offensive and problematic, there are other parts that are really elevating the art of film and really, and when we look back on it, changing the way that films were made after this.
Listen, people still talk this way. I was on a train coming back from Boston yesterday. I don't have a lot of luck on trains sometimes. My first time I was ever on a SEPTA train, I was called a cracker in the middle of
they called you a honky.
It was a cracker in the middle of a potential gang fight. But I was sitting on the train coming back in home from Boston, and so we're all sitting. It's 6:00 on a Saturday, not late by any means. There's children on the train next to me. With
also St. Patty's Day weekend in Boston.
There is an African-American man, and if people want to complain about the use of the F word or the N word in this film, every other word was F word or N word. And the conversation started like this. He was wearing headphones like Jim and I and Katie have on, if you're watching, talking into his phone. So everybody on the train can hear about how he had packed his bags and because the police were going to keep showing up at this house. And he, not for something he had done, but if they went into their room and found what he had in there, he would be in trouble. And F this and then that. So I had to pack it in this bag. No, I have it in the bag right now.
Oh, that's good. Good for everything
on the train. Announcing to everybody that he had it in the bag and he could not be arrested for other people's problems. So he was transporting the bag to his aunt's house.
Okay. Well, fair.
Yeah, and that was fair. So the dialogue was a Tarantino scene, and it's in real life. So I think it is still realistic to this day.
There's a difference, though.
Yeah.
So like Samuel L. Jackson throwing the N-word in every other word he says fits with his character, right?
Yes.
To me, the worst part of the movie is Quentin Tarantino's random appearance as a character, because he's a good writer, he's not a good actor, and so that character felt super stiff already and not really believable. And then when he starts using the N-word to talk about the headless black man in the car talking to Samuel L. Jackson, and then we see that he's married to a black woman.
Well, yes, but I thought that I actually thought that made sense with that character, because he's a guy who thinks he's black.
I didn't get that.
Who thinks
he's
like that. Jules is his his buddy, his friend.
I
somehow,
didn't get that in the way
sure.
that they spoke to each other.
Well,
like,
I think he's very odd.
Now, if
it
it
was more that there was a relationship with the wife, almost like it didn't make sense that they were actually friends.
Yeah.
The way they had dialogue with each other was not that of like
if
two
it
guys
was
that are friends.
what's his name from True Romance, if it was who plays the guy, the drug dealer in True Romance? Oh man,
not Brad Pitt.
No, it's the other guy. It's from Batman.
Val Kilmer.
No, but anyway, if it was Kenny Fisher from Can't Hardly Wait, you'd be like, oh, it makes sense that he would say that and think that he could get away with it.
Right.
Yeah.
Quentin Tarantino looks like he's supposed to be like a bank broker or something. And he's like living in the suburbs.
Well, I don't know about that. He's just
got
living
nice
it
linens.
like in the middle. I felt like he was living off his wife.
But there wasn't anything. He was for me the missing link. He was the piece that was cringeworthy. Everything that happened with him, I wanted to focus on all of the other characters in those scenes and not him, because it just he didn't work.
Eric Stoltz had his choice of characters. So Eric Stoltz could play the Tarantino role or the role he picked.
Gary Oldman.
Yeah.
Gary Oldman.
Oh, yes. Thanks,
Keenan.
And so Eric Stoltz picked the character he picked, and then Quentin Tarantino I don't know if that was budgetary or him just wanting to be in it.
I am sure it was, but
well, he also, how about this? He
also
also kind of wrote, if you notice, there's a story by credit in this, him and his friend who went on to write stuff. And he kind of made his friend sign a thing so he could have written and directed by Quentin Tarantino. He had to have that signed off so he could do that.
Quentin Tarantino insight stories? 'Cause I get the impression that like he's a little bit of a jerk, right, in real life.
I think more than a little.
Okay, great. That's what I thought. And so like Jim was doing a little research on the use of the N-word by Quentin in the movie, and apparently there was like a conversation between him and Samuel L. Jackson where Quentin was basically like, "No, I'm using it. No, I'm saying it," and it makes me like him even less. I mean, I love this movie. I think the movie is great. That scene.
I think
he just thought he was. I just think he thinks he's trendy and cool.
I know, but it hurts the whole movie.
Yeah,
that choice, that ego, like his decision to insert himself and then have this character that doesn't really make sense, using language he shouldn't be using.
I mean, I think that is. I think that's a very valid criticism. I also think he is in a film where the acting is so good. And the delivery of it. First of all, he doesn't have the acting ability to deliver his dialogue.
Right.
That's the problem. To be an actor in his film,
that's
Quentin
what
Tarantino could be in the Dark Phoenix.
There's so
he could
many
be the lead in the Dark Phoenix.
Yes,
but we said like Frank Costello drops those lines, it totally makes sense, right?
Well, yeah,
Give me
Jack
Frank
Nicholson
Costello,
could, yes,
and
he
that
could
like
do it.
that makes sense that
Right.
he is
Yeah.
going to talk like that, and it doesn't make you cringe as much because he's a dirtbag.
Perfect example is, and when doing a little bit of research on this, Samuel L. Jackson basically said, dude, I don't know if we should do this. And he said, no, I'm doing it, and here's how I'm going to do it, and that's how I'm going to say it. And I think Samuel L. Jackson convinced him to make his wife black so that it sort of softened it.
So then,
It didn't
but
soften
wait,
it.
but wait. So, but I think he actually learned from this, because I think and I'd have to go back and watch the kind of his progression here. But in something like Django, which obviously deals with this on a whole nother level, he has Leonardo DiCaprio's character, who's a despicable, disgusting human
person.
being.
Yeah.
To me, totally makes sense for him to be using that kind of language in that film.
And it's a historical piece. That's exactly what would have been said at that time.
Right.
Period.
And the fact that he's that's pretty much the whole theme of the movie, right? Is this black slave getting freed and becoming, a free man and kind of finding his place and getting revenge. So I don't know, I haven't watched a lot of the Quentin Tarantino movies more than a few times. I think I've seen Pulp Fiction the most, but I don't remember as much of a cringe-worthy moment as that.
Yeah.
Again,
I would like
thought-
to bring up Tess Malone's point, if that would be all right with the two of you. I think it's quite relevant.
Yes.
So Tess said, you shouldn't care if you like the man or not. If this was the case, you would watch very little.
Yeah,
and
agreed.
I totally get that. And I talk to my students a lot about distancing the art, the literature from the creator at times, because folks have made some beautiful artwork and have also been despicable human beings. I think that the difference for me is him inserting himself into the film, because now he has put himself up for criticism in a different kind of a way, right? Like that, and that's to me, that's an ego-driven. That's not just the random M. Night drive-by, like the man in the crowd. M. Night is always some random.
M. Night's much better than he is too in his parts.
Right. So this is an important part, right? This is one of those side characters where, that kind of a side character can be like a make or break, right? Where you have these small characters in a lot of movies that like add to the film, right? Well, that detracts from the film in a big way.
I think Jim's right. I think this is his second film after Reservoir Dog, which Reservoir Dog was really made on almost no money.
Mm-hmm.
I think there was hubris in it. I think there was so much stuff about him thinking everything he was doing in this was going to be cutting edge, and I'm going to be edgy. And there is a lot of edgy stuff when you think. And this is just like you get in that vacuum where you're like, I'm Quentin fucking Tarantino, and I'm going to do what I want in this film, and nobody's going to tell me anything other than that. And I think he probably did learn from that, and clearly he must have learned something with Samuel L. Jackson, and Samuel L. Jackson must have felt comfortable because they do work together moving forward, and you do things like Django Unchained,
I will say this,
things like that.
To your point that you just mentioned, the reason Samuel L. Jackson came down on the side of being okay with it was that he said in his head, he's like, well, if I tell him he can't do that, then I'm altering the mind of the writer. Like, I need the writer to be truthful to what he thinks is right and what he wants to do. And if he doesn't do that, we're going to get a bad product, or we're going to get to a place that doesn't come through. So I think to what Brian's saying, Samuel is sort of taking the good with the bad. Like, I need him on that edge to get all the other amazing stuff. We might have to take this 10% shit.
And it's interesting because I think this.
Yeah, what do you disagree with?
Well, because I think then you're kind of catering to an audience, right? So you're saying like, well, this could impact negatively a percentage of your audience, but we're going to accept that risk because, right? Like, to me, that's what that.
Yeah, but I think you're thinking. Like, I think
it's okay if it doesn't sit
but
well
I also,
with a lot of people.
But I also think you have to think about these type of people, and I agree with Jim like this. And it's like if you study Kubrick, or you study some of these other people, their vision, and it's right or wrong. I think sometimes it's what makes people genius. They achieve things that nobody else could achieve, but it's also why people like Steve Jobs and some of these other people can really be vile people at times. They are so sold on their vision, and it's going to be their vision, and it's not going to be altered, and it's going to be exactly what it is, that they don't usually do well with criticism, and they're not, if they're going to adapt or change over time, it's going to be them having to, in their own mind, come to the grounds that, no, I think this is okay. So Samuel L. Jackson saying to him, oh, you need to understand, Quentin, this isn't what we need to do, isn't going to work for something like Quentin Tarantino. Quentin Tarantino needs to think that it's the original idea of Quentin Tarantino, that, you know what, I did this dialogue in Pulp Fiction or something like this. I'm 5 films into this now. I'm looking at it. Maybe I cringe a little bit at that line, and I'm not going to do something like that again. But they're just not receptive, I think, to things, because Jim's right. They and I think Samuel L. Jackson's probably right. Like the guy who wrote a scene with Ving Rhames getting anally raped and getting
the other
chopped,
one, right? So that's
chopped
the other
in
scene
half
that we
with
talk about.
with a samurai sword,
right? So
is
to me,
insane.
That scene. So looking at this as a 1994 movie, brilliant. That movie comes out in 2019. No, not okay. So like that, the portrayal of your only arguably gay characters in the entire movie being deviant sexual predators who present themselves as rednecks, have an obsession with weaponry. That is like pandering to so many stereotypes. It's Deliverance, right? Like it's like a modern take on Deliverance, right? That you're gonna go into the redneck country and you're gonna get butt raped, right? Like that's so problematic. That scene to me is so problematic. I love this movie, but I think those two scenes.
I think our thought process is more influenced by a modern viewpoint, where he writes those, I think, as them being more edgy takes.
I don't know if you can take that as edgy, though.
I think at the time in 1994, I think he was introducing a lot of people to the idea that this like submissive and dominant type culture even existed.
Sure. And you know, it's interesting. Yeah. So there's a lot of ways you can approach that, right? It being all men in the room, it plays differently than if a woman was involved.
Right. And what I also said
is when you think that through
is, to me, is that I never saw them as homosexual characters. I saw them as like these, like just awful.
But that's weird, right? Like, so like straight men.
Well, the fact that
like, I don't like any way to talk about it.
Right.
Like,
but we've seen this in all kinds of prison movies, in this idea that.
So is the implication that they, like, on the outside, like most people think of them as like tough straight men, and the way that they're playing out their true like sexual tendencies is by these like horrendously violent acts. Anyway, it doesn't do anything. In 1994, this doesn't do anything for folks that are struggling with understanding homosexuality, finding tolerance. It's not helping.
I'm like Jim. I didn't take that. I thought take them as a whole separate deviant subculture of Los Angeles. I didn't see it as commentary on homosexuality, because I just thought they were sick people. I mean, he could have done that to a female character. I thought it was interesting that he chose a male character, which I thought was really different than, I mean, the thing would have been, obviously the Hollywood cliche would have been somehow Bruce Willis's girlfriend's with him, and it's her they're doing it to, or somehow Mia Wallace is there and it's her being done. It's like almost an attack of humbling Marcellus Wallace, this guy who's supposed to be this hardcore guy that will kill anybody and toss people from, things, and look what they're going to do to him. They're going to do, I think, the most horrific thing you could ever do to any person. which is to
again
rape
that
them.
like that plays on that. I think that it is important that it's men in the room, and for the time period, I think that's playing into a stereotype. But again,
I would like to know what stereotype you're talking about, because I don't think that's a stereotype that exists.
I think that it does. I mean, we're gonna get real serious now. So
Wait, you think there's a stereotype that you think that homosexual people are just raping people?
No, that that there's like a deviance to, right? So you see this same notion with like
the deviance,
child
yes, that
molestation,
definitely,
right? That like, if they just let priests get married, then we wouldn't have young children, right? Like that. So that's that same notion that, that there's a deviance to homosexuality, and that gay men are just looking for any opportunity to.
Well, it's a fair criticism, but I don't.
It is. I just didn't take it from that angle, but I think it is fair to say that.
Yeah.
If you want to. All right. How about the fact that this lost to Forrest Gump in pretty much every category?
Yes.
I am very public in my dislike of Forrest Gump as a film. I think it's one of the most overrated films of the 20th century, and the idea that Forrest Gump means more to cinematic history than Pulp Fiction is really weird for me. And Jimmy Costanza was on and makes a good point. If Forrest Gump came out today, Hanks would be blacklisted. A portrayal of someone with a mental handicap,
right?
And the way he is portrayed, that portrayal might be more offensive than
which is interesting because that movie, from what I hear, is still being shown a lot in schools.
Yeah,
every year have students ask, "We're going to watch Forrest Gump." It's we didn't start the fire of films. Every bad history teacher says, "Oh, I don't want to teach in June." So everybody here, take We Didn't Start the Fire and research all of this, and then we'll watch Forrest Gump.
Ed Wash
by the way, neither are good. Hot take. We Didn't Start the Fire is a crap Billy Joel song.
It's a terrible song.
But there's a list of a lot of illusions.
Yes,
you can talk
but
about.
Ed Wahesh makes a good point. Forrest Gump has a nice soundtrack. Nice. I will say that I will raise it almost famous and just be done.
It does have some good. It's got some good songs.
Of course,
it's
but it's not.
Let's be very clear. There was no way that mainstream America was ready for Pulp Fiction, whatever criticism.
Absolutely.
The violence when Marvin's head gets blown off.
I remember insane. The day I was in school. I was a sophomore. I was a sophomore in high school. And my religion teacher came in. He was new. He was brand new. He was young. Mr. Braithwaite. He's been at the prep now forever. Yeah, and he's the big theater guy there. He came in and he said, "I saw Pulp Fiction last night. It's an amazing movie. There's a scene in it that is probably one of the most violent, disgusting things I've ever seen on film." And I was literally laughing the entire time it was happening.
But that's interesting because when you said that, I was which scene?
Which scene? Right.
Yeah.
There's a few. The scene that stood out to me, I was trying to remember. I remember watching this movie in high school, but I didn't see it in the theater. I think that it was like a free Showtime weekend. Like I can clearly remember watching this in my house, and it was unedited and being like blown away by it.
Your parents didn't even let you watch Dirty Dancing. How'd you get away with that?
They did not know I saw this movie.
Were they talking about this in the bush?
No, I don't remember talking about this movie with my friends, but I think we did. Anyway, the scene that I remember being stunned by is the adrenaline to the heart scene. Like that's the one that is sealed in my memory.
Yeah,
forever.
yeah. Well, there's a lot of that in this
you're
movie.
right. There's a lot of visuals.
And the dialogue. The dialogue, watching this
amazing.
Movie, I can recall, and Katie makes fun of me because I can recall a lot of lines from a lot of movies, but there are a lot in this movie specifically that just the first time I saw it were etched into my brain.
There is a an argument to be made. He's got to be one of the top 5 dialogue writers
Oh yeah.
in Hollywood. That's a great pop-addled episode with Keenan. So, they love their top
Best
5s.
writers of dialogue.
Yeah.
I like
Best
it.
writers of dialogue. He's right up there.
So can we tackle Jace Curran's question?
Yeah.
Yes, let's do that. There'll be a great end piece here.
All right.
The MacGuffin in Pulp Fiction.
So what's in the case?
Well, I'm sure Brian did a little bit of research. The thing that I always heard, and I think it's ridiculous because I think it's funny, but I think in the end it doesn't matter what's in the case, which is why they don't show it. But I had heard someone say that it's like Marcellus Wallace's soul.
Oh, that's funny.
And that's why he has the Band-Aid on the back of his neck, like something sucked his soul out.
I can tell you the Band-Aid was just Ving Rhames had a cut.
He does. He has a scar there.
Yeah, and they just put a Band-Aid. He had a Band-Aid or something on, and they're like, just leave it on for the whole movie.
Yeah.
I think this was his play on the idea of a MacGuffin, and they lit it, and I couldn't find a definitive answer to that. I just thought it was interesting that it almost was not necessary to be answered.
It was
I kind of
important.
like stuff like that. It's like it turns out that if you care, if that's a problem for you, you're the same type of person who wouldn't like the show Lost.
No,
Right.
but I
I
think
like
it's like
things
it's
like that.
Yeah, but it's fun to discuss, Brian.
No,
like,
it
it's,
is. But I'm
easy to just
saying
be like,
I like
well, you're
discussing
never
it.
gonna
But
know.
there's some people who would be pissed off because they need the answer. I think it's fun to bounce the idea around what it is. To me, the lighting was so crazy.
Yeah.
I was like, well, it can't be drugs because even people who are non-drug related in the film were intrigued by it. So what's something that's going to, and then when he says the Tim Roth in the diner, Samuel L. Jackson's, you know what that is, right? And
No, he
like,
says, is that what I think it is? And he says,
So it's something
that it's recognizable, right? So like that suggests like that it's something that he can understand what it is, but it's not like a case of money, right? Like it's not like
I think
certainly. The glow,
right?
Well, the glow makes. I mean,
symbolic,
whatever. Like, but there's other things in this movie that are symbolic when she does the square. Yeah, you see it right now, and so like, you can't take for face value in this movie everything you're seeing on the screen is what the characters are saying. So to me, I think it's a great choice because the moment you show that it's money or that it's drugs or that it's weapons, whatever you want to say it is, immediately there's a viewer or someone in the audience that
has something
that doesn't feel like it's worth what's going on in the movie.
Yeah.
And so like to leave it, to leave it ambiguous means that it is the most important thing to every character and to the audience. Yeah. But it basically fulfills all motivations without ruining any.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting. There's so many great things in terms of that. A must watch. It is on Netflix right now.
Yes, it is.
So if you are a Netflix subscriber,
on Brad.
you can do that. Oh, the chunks of Marvin.
Oh my God! And Samuel L. Jackson's hair.
One of my favorite parts is when he's in the back, and when they are arguing, when they're cleaning up the car, and he's like, "And why am I in the back?" Like that.
I love Harvey Keitel being at a funeral. Like I love that scene of him sitting on the twin bed, taking the phone call about like the and whatever language he's using about.
And who are the principals?
And white. Black.
What time is she arriving?
And I'm to believe that she would be none too happy to find us here.
I love him. He's one of my favorite characters in the movie.
Oh, he's tremendous. He got this movie made, by the way.
Yeah, I bet.
When he got it made. The hair, just to end on the hair choices, Travolta put the extensions in, and Quentin Tarantino was like, dude, what are you talking? He's like, I'll do it on my own and I'll show up.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I have one more thing I want to talk about.
And then, but just the last thing is Samuel L. Jackson was supposed to have an afro, and they sent some white kid who didn't know what an afro was to the Valley to pick up a wig, and he picked up a Jerry curl wig instead. And Quentin Tarantino freaked out, and Samuel L. Jackson's like, "No, this is exactly what I need. I need a Jerry curl wig."
That's amazing.
And that's how that came about.
All right.
I love. We'll each get one more. So Brian gets that. I get one. Then you'll back clean up and take us out.
Sounds good.
So. The thing I love about Jules and Vincent is the way that they argue in this movie, and it's partly Quentin's dialogue and working within film, but he makes them argue about shit, and they don't hate each other at the end. They are arguing about like some serious stuff at certain points and some really mundane stuff at other points, and have completely opposite views. And then they're just like, okay, let's go back to work and kill this guy. And I find that fascinating.
And for one more comparison to The Departed,
Yeah.
the emotional connection
Yes.
to all, even Ving Rhames, right?
Yeah.
Like, look at how he works story development and character, that even you can recognize that all three of them are horrible humans, but you also care about them.
Yeah.
That's a well-written story.
Yeah.
Hollywood. Anyway, my final point was about the change of clothes that they get at Jim. At Quentin.
That looked like
Didn't that look
I
like
love
something
it.
Jim and I would have worn in college?
I was going to
our
say,
outfit.
I think the comment is like, "Are you going to play volleyball?"
Yeah.
That is all I wore for
Hilarious.
about 4 years.
Yeah.
Like that.
If
I
they-
almost wore that tonight for the show. It's like
Well, it looked at
volleyball
one point
gear.
like they had like bathing suits on, but if it was like
Hysterical.
champion mesh shorts,
Yeah.
it would have totally been
Yep.
me and
I
Brian.
love the banana
Hysterical.
slugs
I
Oh,
loved
shirt.
it.
so good.
I
so
loved
good.
it so much.
So we should probably hold Keenan's porch man treatment until next episode, because this is already an hour.
Yes.
And we didn't get a chance to really tease it last week, but Keenan Laird from Pop Addled has started to record little treatments that we are going to play, explaining his porch man movie idea from around probably a little bit after Pulp Fiction came out. When he was about 18, 19, he had an idea for a movie called Porch Man. And I will just tease it right now. It revolves around a Delco legend of a guy who would always, whenever you drove down his street, he was always on his porch. He had like a nice screened in porch with a TV out there, always there. And everyone started to call him Porch Man and wonder why he was always out on the porch.
There's a few of these kinds of characters in Delco.
There's
Tall
Tall Man, and
Tall
then
Man.
there's the Pearl Lady. Isn't there like the lady?
Your brother knows all of them.
and-
He
and-
knows
Keenan and
all
I
the names.
have taken some.
Oh, the Red Man.
The
I
Red
haven't
Man.
seen Red Man in a long
Yeah,
time.
Red Man.
I don't know
And
what
not
happened.
from the Wu-Tang, not that
Sorry,
Red Man.
No. Just wears
Keenan and
red.
it took a few cracks at the script before
Yeah.
years
Oh my
ago,
Yeah, and
trying to
and
break it down into a film.
I
We have
even have a little recording to kind of amp up the excitement.
All right, we'll
here.
talk about that next week because there. Play that again. Play it again. Here we go. Well, there we go.
Brian, you need to shut up so I can play it. You talking over it.
Porchman.
Keenan sounds so bassy and
Yeah, I
important
like it.
in that.
It's the keto
We're
diet.
gonna break
The
it down.
keto.
We're gonna
bringing out
I
the
know-
base.
I just watched the Raiders documentary. You know, the guys
Oh,
who
yeah,
made
yeah.
the Raiders of the Lost Ark
How was it?
remake. It took a dark turn at points.
Okay.
It took a dark, but it was really interesting if you want to watch it. It's on Netflix. Search Raiders if you want to see these kids who, when they were 13 years old, started doing a shot-for-shot remake of Raiders of the Lost Ark. It was very interesting. All right, let's go spanning the globe. Instant reaction. We posted our trailer of the week. This week was Guy Ritchie's live adaptation of Aladdin, which
I
we
didn't
had
realize it was Guy
mentioned.
Ritchie.
Yeah, which we had mentioned briefly on the show when they released a picture of Will Smith as the genie. I did not like the teaser trailer, and I did not like the full trailer. People who commented on this
Yes.
seem to be excited about it. I am not excited at all about this film.
I am not a huge Aladdin fan. I love that one song with Robin Williams doing it. I keep wanting to say you got a friend
When he
in
does
me,
all
but
the
He's
different,
doing the
Yeah,
same
yeah.
thing.
it's
never have a friend like
never
me.
have
There
a
it
friend
is.
like friend like
Yeah.
me. But I'm not a huge Aladdin fan. But I will say I understand how people kind of moved on this, because the last trailer looks way more exciting and interesting.
It's
than,
a compelling story. I feel
I
like
didn't
there's
think the
work that
bits
could be
of
done there.
song we heard are very good.
Mm.
I
Yeah.
listen. I give Will Smith all the credit in the world, because that was such a film driven by Robin Williams.
Yeah.
Just to say, like, I'm going to do this. I don't know.
Who,
I also
who is
don't
Jafar
have.
in the movie?
Yeah, Mike App is
It's
saying
all-
Jafar's looks bad.
I don't know who's playing him.
It's a lot of people you wouldn't know. I think they purposely tried to cast proper ethnic actors.
Yeah,
for
he
the role,
just,
which
he
I-
just
which
does not
they-
look very scary or commanding.
No.
He looks
I just
kind of
I don't-
yeah.
hey, though Wash is going to be the voice of Yago.
Yeah,
So-
and that is
I love
exciting.
Wash.
That is
Wash
exciting.
And
yeah.
I love Iago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll
So
watch it. I'm excited about it.
No.
I like the turn to the live action movies. I think that's fun.
Yeah, listen, it could be good. Cinderella was good. I saw Claire wanted to see that. That
Yep.
was good. Beauty and the Beast was good.
Yep.
I mean, they've been.
Jungle
You know
Book.
what's really weird though? Disney is putting out Aladdin, Lion King, Toy Story,
Mm-hmm.
and I can't remember what the other one is.
Frozen
Star
2.
Wars.
No, but those three like live act all in the span of the next 6 months.
Oh wait,
It's
Toy
like a
Story is
real-
going to be live action?
No.
Oh.
No, but the live action ones and Toy Story, they're all coming out like Aladdin's May, Toy Story's August, Lion King's July. It was
Frozen
really Frozen 2's November.
Mhm.
Well, I don't know. I just didn't like it.
Yeah.
More importantly, though, the Avengers Endgame trailer came out
Mm.
and was amazing.
It looks very good. Katie, you didn't watch it.
I didn't
And
watch it.
We'll watch it after this and
Okay.
get Katie's reaction for next week.
Yes. And is the Infinity Decanter ready for
It's
the
pretty
film?
It's like 3/4.
It's pretty close.
That's close enough.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's close enough. That trailer was great. I
Oh,
highly
Dumbo.
recommend watching it.
Jimmy says Dumbo.
Dumbo. Thank you,
yes,
Jimmy. Yeah,
Thank you.
Jimmy. Dumbo is the other one. All of them are coming out in the next.
That is weird. I kind of
6
thought they would
months.
do like one live action movie a year. Like I just
Well,
that
I
seems
think-
like what
I don't
was
know
happening.
what's going on with that.
Yeah.
Tim Burton's take on Dumbo. That kind of intrigues me because it's
Mhm.
Tim Burton's take on Dumbo. Maybe I hope I'm wrong. I'm sure I'll see Aladdin because Claire will
You know,
want to
and
see
it's
it.
interesting.
so.
Like that's one of those movies that I feel like our kids haven't seen. I don't think a lot of kids have seen Dumbo the movie. Like that one's
Right,
a little
right,
bit
right.
beyond, and it's not one of the princess films.
Well,
And
they
it's-
also
it
change it
looks
around a
old.
little bit, and it's the one they had to adapt the most because they had to add a lot to it, I guess.
Okay.
So there's more different story than Aladdin and Lion King, which are almost identical. The
Okay.
Lion King, I'm excited
I like
about.
a good
That's
circus
gonna be
movie.
amazing. Okay, our question of the week, things we talk about over beer at Oscars, which I think Oscars is not only for sale, but I think it's closed currently.
Oh,
Also,
no.
for
Sadness.
fellow Scranton people out there, Green Frog is no longer the Green Frog. It's like a wine bar now.
A wine bar off
yeah, or
campus.
something. Yeah. Apparently,
Who's
I was
drinking
reading.
wine
How
in
much Arbor
college?
Mist do they have?
I don't know.
Oh,
No,
what's
this
happening?
is. I was reading somebody and was in one of the like chat groups for the reunions. They like post on Facebook was saying that all the kids now like to go downtown and they want to go to more upscale bars. They don't
Oh,
like
see,
the
this
idea
makes
of
me think that the folks going to
divey
Scranton have a whole lot more money than the
bars.
folks who went to Scranton.
Well,
with
we
us
know
did.
from the past week that they do. Although I don't think people
From
at
last
Scranton
week.
are accepting bribes for kids to get in
Oh.
there.
Yeah, I don't think that
No.
Scranton was on that list,
No,
Jim.
I don't think we were on
I don't
that
think
list.
Hollywood celebrities are
You don't
bribing
know. You don't know.
I don't know.
bribing Polars to get in.
Well, if after listening to this show, why wouldn't you want your go to Scranton?
I mean, look at what's
Um,
become of us.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's the things we talk about at beer of Oscar. At Oscars, Ohio.
Bit,
man-
Try that one again,
We'll-
Brian.
Corned beef hot.
We'll just go to that. So there's an Ohio man
Yeah.
who for Lent has given up food and is only consuming beer and is saying this is something he took from 17th century monks,
Yeah.
excuse me. Del Harris, who Aileen pointed out, and I completely agree, works at something called 50 West Brewing Company in Cincinnati. So this is clearly a non-religious thing. This
Yeah.
is a plug attempt to
I
promote
think
his
he's
beer.
going to die.
No, he'll be
he's
fine.
he's drinking just water and beer.
Well,
He's
beer is
consuming no
basically
food.
liquid bread, so he'll
Yes,
be fine.
he's saying he followed the 17th. He's already lost
We
about
saw-
All
20
right.
pounds.
We saw Wolfie do this. One
Oh,
intercession.
True. He almost died.
No, he
And that
did.
was like-
he did lose a lot of
No,
weight.
Yeah, he was
No.
dying. That was
He
what was
was not
happening.
dying.
His
He was not
body was
dying.
I don't
actually
think he was
dying.
dying at
You're
all.
not giving any nutrients to your body.
You
Well,
didn't know
you can't-
Wolfie like we did at that time.
Yeah, I don't think he was dying.
Okay.
But this leads me to
He
my
looked
question.
great.
If you had to pick only one thing to consume for 40 days,
Yeah.
what would it be?
Tea cooler.
Oh, really?
It's delicious.
That is out of left field for me. I had no idea that you like tea cooler that much.
Oh my god, I could go off the deep end with tea cooler. Am I? So I'm sorry. Am
You're
I
worried
eating
about-
food too?
No,
so now
it's
I'm
the
gonna
only
get.
thing.
So now I feel like it should be smoothies. I'm having water. I'm
But
getting
it's
very
gotta be,
practical
like-
about this. I
but
feel
it's
like my
no, no,
body.
It can only be one thing in the smoothie.
And you
What?
can get water.
You can't even make it. Yeah, you get water and one item.
like a
That's the
drinkable
oldest-
yogurt.
Well,
I'm
no,
gonna take
she
a
could
drinkable
say
yogurt.
she could say
Yes,
like I'm
you
gonna
could.
have
I'm
like a
taking
banana smoothie.
I'm gonna take
Okay,
a
that's
Stony
fine.
Field strawberry smoothie.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, there you go.
I'm gonna go
Perfect.
practical with it.
I'm going water and pizza.
Wait.
Oh, okay.
Are we allowed to? We're allowed to eat?
Well, you get water.
You can pick. Yeah, you consume
Oh, I'm sorry.
one thing.
I
It
thought it
doesn't
had
have
to be liquid.
No.
You pay attention.
Cereal.
Yeah, that's
Cereal.
where I
just-
thought you
I
were
just-
going with
I
that.
just re-listened to
What cereal?
the Lord of the Rings episodes where two of you were trying to explain to me this question about what
Oh.
artist would you like to come
Oh
Stop.
my god, that was not the high watermark.
This is
of the
worse
show.
than this.
Oh my god.
No, I was
would-
reading the question. The question wasn't written well. Well, because it was all about like the guy only drinking one thing. So I thought,
Yeah, but-
Literally,
that's
the
what
question
he
is
chose.
if you had to pick only one thing to consume.
right, but I thought it meant like a liquid thing.
It doesn't
Then it would
say that.
liquid thing. Aren't you the English teacher? Christ, can't you read?
All right, cereal and water.
We
That's
are
it.
cemented in stone as comm majors at this point. There is
Oh,
no
Jesus.
something that you actually have to do on this podcast is communicate and sometimes
And
through-
read.
and read. Yeah.
I read it. I read
No,
it.
Okay.
you saw words.
Yes. Oh my god.
So what are you finally going with?
Cereal.
Yes,
What cereal? You got to pick
what
one.
cereal?
Honey
You
Nut
can't have a
Cheerios.
variety.
Honey Nut Cheerios with banana
You're
and milk.
awful.
You can't have banana or milk.
I would
Get
say
one thing.
I would say it's fair to have a bowl of cereal with milk. Like you could
all right,
she could
we'll give
get
her milk.
right.
We'll give you milk, I
Thank
guess.
you.
Yeah.
Um,
I think the only thing that I probably wouldn't be sick of after 40 days is pizza.
Okay.
Interesting.
I would pick chicken
Ugh.
because I think you can prepare it in lots of
vomit
different
right
ways.
No,
now.
you can't. What are you preparing it with?
Different. You can use like different.
What,
you
like
could
the
grill it.
barbecue boiled
Yeah,
and
but you can grill it. You can
it's
do
not
different
changing
things.
it that much.
Poach it in
It's
some
You
water.
could poach it.
Oh.
You could bake it.
We're getting quotes in chat. Mike just said, "I read it, and you saw words."
Oh my god. Oh, let's just move on.
I'm sorry. I'm
Let's
thinking
cut-
about
let's-
chicken poached
Can we just
in
cut our
water.
loss? I am really concerned because today's 5 questions is Katie. So this could go downhill really fast.
We might have to break this into
Wild
2
card,
episodes.
bitches.
Oh my god.
Okay, here we
Hold
go.
on, let me-
Here we go. How
All right,
many
here we
how many
go.
minutes are we at?
No, we're under usually where we
Okay,
usually are. I
great.
believe at a
Here we go.
point. Here we go. All right. 5 questions for Katie. First of all, there's an amazing themed restaurant in Pulp Fiction that we didn't get a chance to talk about. Thumbs up or
Oh, yeah.
thumbs down on the idea of
Jack
themed
Rabbit Slims.
restaurants.
Jack Rabbit Slims.
They couldn't hear the question,
I
Jim.
know. Sorry, Brian.
Come on.
no, they I think they heard
Theme
thumbs up or
restaurants
thumbs down.
are
Theme
a
restaurants.
thumbs up for Katie.
Oh, really?
I love a theme restaurant. Now, I am not going there for the best food. I'm going there for the experience. So I love some Disney restaurants, which are theme restaurants, right?
Okay. Yes, theoretically.
One of my long-standing ideas for for an establishment.
Stop. I don't know what's coming, Brian.
I
hold on to
I
your
wanna hear.
fucking hat.
No, I absolutely want to hear what's coming.
I came up with this. Somebody's gonna steal this idea now. I came up with this idea. I think when I was a high schooler, and I come back to it every once in a while.
She's embarrassed to even tell me because I have never heard this. This is
Oh,
bad.
I can't wait.
This
This
I
gonna
have
be
it all
fantastic.
planned out.
Oh, what is
All
it?
right.
There are blueprints.
Are
It
you
is-
crying?
Yes. It is a restaurant named.
Oh my god.
It's called Rainy Days and Mondays. And I know rainy days and Mondays always get you down, but the idea is that inside it's going to always be. I think I just broke this chair. It's always going to look like a beautiful day, so it's ironic, right? And it's going to be a picnic style eating establishment. Now I recognize that some people do not like sitting on the ground, so there would be a variety of seating options, but the picnic motif would be the theme. And so your server would bring you your meal in a basket. And
so let's take the best thing about being at a picnic and take that out of the equation. Let's not be outside.
No, it's going to look like you're outside. But the idea is that, like, if it's raining outside, you can go to my restaurant and it's going to be, it'll be like the planetarium, right? Where it's like, it looks like you're outside, but you're not actually outside. And so for all the folks who in the winter get the doldrums, they can go to rainy days and Mondays and it'll lift them right up. No more seasonal affective disorder. Katie is going to end it.
All right, question 2. Which actor is a better dancer on screen, John Travolta or Patrick Swayze?
So I'm going with John Travolta because I have more movies I can reference with him dancing in different ways. So John Travolta. Okay. I was very excited to watch the dance sequence in Pulp Fiction because that's one of the things that I remembered about the movie.
All right. Perfect. Fill in the blank. Uma Thurman is Quentin Tarantino's muse. My muse is
Jim DeSanto.
That's not true.
You are the force in my life that makes me want to create beautiful things.
Okay,
like
fair
a
enough.
picnic themed.
Well, I
restaurant.
came up with that idea before I met you.
Her ideas since me have been slightly better.
Slightly better. Now, Katie, I know you wouldn't purchase anything from McDonald's now, but
false.
Oh, okay. Oh, so what's your favorite item on a McDonald's menu?
Vanilla milkshake.
Which is
don't ruin it for me.
No, I'm not going to ruin it. I'm not going to ruin it. What I'm going to say is that if you search the internet about McDonald's, there's this ongoing thing that the employees hate making and dealing with the milkshake so much that they often pretend that the milkshake machine is broken.
Oh, well, I always have luck with actually getting milkshakes.
All right.
I have also been known to love...
Is it a $5 shake?
No, it is not a $5 shake. I do love a milkshake.
They put bourbon in there?
McFlurries are also amazing.
Ooh, okay.
But since they discontinued the Butterfinger McFlurry, I have shifted away from them because the other fillings are not as good as Butterfinger.
You don't like the Oreo one?
Nope.
Do they have an Oreo one?
They do.
I don't even know.
And M&M's. Not as good.
All right, fries are the best McDonald's.
Do you know what they have the best,
dipped
though?
in a vanilla milkshake.
Do you know they have their fountain soda Coke
recipe? Yeah.
Because of the way they store it and everything.
Yeah.
I dare you to not love a fountain soda Coke from there. It's
Peg loves a Coke from
amazing.
McDonald's. She does.
Absolutely amazing. All right, deep thoughts question of the week. Which Pulp Fiction character would you have a glass of One Hope wine with?
So it was interesting when you were talking about the portrayal of Vincent in this movie that like he becomes more and more of a jerk because I loved him. And
oh my God, he's terrible. He's the worst character.
Your choice of men is horrific.
I don't mean the worst character in that he was written bad. He's just a terrible guy.
No, he's not.
Yeah.
No, he is not.
He's so not.
I dare you to go back.
He's a heroin addict.
Well, that's true, but we all have our problems.
Yeah, I think that's the least of his issues.
I'm just having a glass of wine with him.
He killed Marvin.
And that was an accident.
Yeah, Jules went over a bump.
I mean, I'm not holding that against him.
You're not holding that against him.
No, we're gonna dance. We're gonna drink some wine.
He's one of the worst characters in the film.
He is.
He's a vile individual.
No, he is not. He is.
I think if you rank the characters of awful people, he's the top 2.
Nope.
In the whole film.
Nope.
Well, you have Zed. And
Zed's
the other guy.
dead, baby.
Yeah.
Zed's dead.
Yeah, and I don't even count him as a major character.
See, Bruce Willis to me is much more creepy. Like watching him talk to the girlfriend and like lose his crap over his father's watch. Nope. I'm sorry. I don't care what you've done. If there's a point where you speak to your person like that, they gotta go. That is not a good sign. She should have gotten off of that chopper. It's a chopper, baby. Get off of the chopper and don't.
I
look
thought
back.
you were going to pick Harvey Keitel without.
I do love Harvey Keitel.
in a
I do love
second.
Harvey
He was
Keitel.
awesome.
But no, I'm gonna sit with Vincent.
Okay. Recommendations. What does everybody have for this week?
You going?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were showing Baymax.
Baymax, One Hope Coffee. Get it?
No.
Delicious.
It's
This
house
is-
cup coffee.
One Hope Coffee.
One Hope Coffee. Oh,
We do
House
make
cup
coffee,
blend.
but I never talk
House
about it.
cup
because-
coffee. It's tonight I'm having what is considered the gym blend, which is Ethiopian and Brazil 50-50 mix. If you are nice to Brian, he might make you that. It's not currently offered on the website.
Awesome.
Queer Eye for the Straight Guy is back.
The original or the
Season
new?
3, the
The
new
new.
one.
Okay.
Jim and I have watched the first 2 episodes, and it's incredible.
It's real good.
Now they have a dog, Bruley, who visits from the office down the hall, and he's amazing, and they are amazing, and they are bringing joy to the whole earth.
Karamo's on it, Brian, who came to our house in Manayunk one
Yep.
time.
Claim to fame.
Oh, really?
He was in the Philly
Yep. Real world.
Real World.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
So many people came through that house.
Yep.
So many people.
Play
My
on
recommendations. Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, great movie. Aileen has been listening nonstop on Alexa on our little Echo in the kitchen as we're preparing dinner to Dave Matthews Band live at Red Rocks.
Oh, that's a good CD.
That is
Great
good.
CD. Empire podcast spoiler special on Captain Marvel, and they did a full breakdown on the Avengers Endgame. You can get that on Apple Podcast. Highly
Still haven't
recommend it.
seen Captain Marvel. I need to get there
It was
and see
very,
that.
very good. And Aileen has never seen West Wing, and we started watching it this
we've
week.
never
How are
watched
you
it
watching
either.
that DVD?
No, it is on Netflix.
We might need to do that. We've
Yeah.
never watched.
And I, of course, have always loved West Wing. It is a fantastic
Is it
written
Aaron
show.
Sorkin?
Mhm.
I don't
Yeah,
know.
Ar-
I need
yeah,
to
no,
take a
he is-
year off.
this
It's
is- this is-
Newsroom, Aaron Sorkin.
Yes,
So-
no, this is good. This is not, Aaron Sorkin's there with Tarantino for dialogue, in my opinion. When he
He's
was
trying.
well, the problem is he's an addict, and you can tell when he's using and when he's not using a lot of times, unfortunately, in terms of when he writes things, allegedly.
Allegedly.
Next week, 2001 Space Odyssey.
I'm excited to watch that again.
Ooh.
That's one of my earliest movie viewing memories. Yeah.
Yes, I'm
Steve
very
Kulik.
excited.
Seven
And-
Very Science.
And also
Porchman.
Ooh,
part 1.
Yes.
The-
I can't. Are
Like
we going
the
to break
audio
this? 'Cause-
tale?
Yeah, Keenan
Are we going to
recorded
break
a
this into
5-minute
multiple
audio tape.
parts?
Yeah, the 5
Oh,
minute
there's
is
more
just
to-
is so the 5-minute thing Keenan recorded is the kind of like a high level synopsis of what the movie's about, and then
Okay.
the first. So it in Quentin Tarantino style, it consists of 5 separate stories,
Okay.
Oh,
and this 5-minute
very
porch-
nice, Keenan.
Porchman.
includes the first story.
I'm excited.
Okay. Amazing. Fantastic. Again, if you could share us, like us, review us.
Subscribe on your
subscribe.
channels.
Yeah. all that stuff.
And also go check out our friend Keenan at Pop Battle. They do a lot of fun podcasts. They were talking about a bunch of different comics and movies and music this week. It was
Yes.
a good episode.
Great Alanis Morissette.
Yeah, is
discussion.
Alanis Morissette grunge? I'll leave that in your brain.
Yeah. Great discussion. It was a great episode. We'll be back next week with 2001 Space Odyssey.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
We were born to take